Okay, it is November 28th at 3:50 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time, and this is Remixing Real News. We're back, and it's quite a story we have, and I tell that story, and we're going to tell more of that story. We have a memoir coming up. We have to write a book. We have to write an incredible book about this. This particular Remixing Real News is not going to be one that we say is for the history books, because it's going to be one like any other. This is getting back into the groove of it. This is getting my bearings. We're in Honolulu, Hawaii. It's a place I don't want to be. It's a incredible time in the world of journalism, and they won't talk about it, and there's a lot of things behind it, and we're going to have to write a book called Mathew F. Ursua, a book by Mathew F. Ursua, Encrypted, this is a Bob Woodward book, Encryption Wars, Encrypted Crime, by Mathew Ursua, Encrypted Crime by Mathew F. Ursua, the Bob Woodward book by Mathew F. Ursua about the sweep of encryption across the country. And I do believe the reason why I was incarcerated for the better part of 3 years is, in Nye County, is that Homeland Security put me under mind control and also paid out people or put other people under mind control to make reports about me that were false, in order to sideline me, to prevent me from stopping to getting involved in, to prevent me from getting involved in Las Vegas with what was then Sheriff Joe Lombardo, now Republican governor, we sent him up to Carson City in Nevada, our governor in Nevada, and he's by all accounts doing better than the Democrat Steve Sisolak. I have to be sold out to Donald Trump. Alex Jones should not have been. So now I have to do the work of Alex Jones, because Alex Jones did sell out to Donald Trump, and then everything he talked about at that point just became. But if you knew his template, if you knew Alex Jones' template, you could interpret properly his sold out to Donald Trump language. He was basically hijacked by QAnon, and he was talking about getting stuff from high-level Marine Corps. No, he was getting stuff from some guy in the Marine Corps that was, feeding stuff from QAnon to him. And we know the thing with that, and it's that anyone that's educated looks at that and knows what that is. You're not supposed to know statistical reality. You're supposed to think that a town with 50,000 people, with a media atmosphere, an artificial media atmosphere, is because it has an artificial media atmosphere as significant as say, I'm talking about Pahrump in Las Vegas, 60 miles away with 6+ million people, let's say. You're supposed to think that's statistically significant. And it's not that it isn't. The fact there is a media atmosphere, and someone created a TV station, someone made a newspaper, and there is a newspaper, and once there was Pahrump Mirror, and once there was Pahrump Valley Times, and now there's just Pahrump Valley Times. But it's artificial. I believe there should be two papers in places like that. I believe there should be two papers in everywhere. Like Las Vegas should have two papers, but the way they've consolidated it, and the world isn't what it used to be. It should be in a lot of ways. You have to say that, but anyway, but this is going to be a Remixing Real News unlike any other, and for the first time, I'm not driving around trying to sell real estate. Doing this, and it's been about a 4-year gap since I think the last Remixing Real News, and this time we're going to be putting it up on YouTube. We're going to be archiving the 4 original lengthy podcasts. These are monumental podcasts, Remixing Real News podcasts of me talking about this, what we call Mathew F. Ursua news template, which can be applied, and this was in the early days of AI, before we had the Perplexity, and ChatGPT was what it was. But I talked about, and I predicted so much of what AI was going to be able to do, and it's not even AI, it's conditional logic. And instead, what I was going to say is that this is going to be a podcast unlike any other, because we're not going to be talking about that news template. This is me getting my bearings, relearning what I need to learn, breaking back into understanding just enough about the media landscape. Like before, it's a refresher course. If it's not journalism school, it's J school. But I think it's worth doing this. But, so to put it this way, Charlie Rose was very versatile. And everyone that went to journalism school knows that you watch Charlie Rose in front of that black background, because there's no better way to learn how to interview. I think it was Maleka Lincoln, the Hawaii News Now reporter, when I had been introduced to Guide Star at IRE NICAR in those years at Kaleo, Hawaii. I think it was the year before I was the photo editor there. She said her tactic for asking questions in difficult, I don't know how this had come up, I don't recall how this had come up, her tactic for asking questions with people that had been through very difficult things like, hurricane, natural disaster, death, loss of loved one kind of stuff, is to just say, wow. All right, wow. But, Charlie Rose has the way to do it. But we were very shocked. I was very shocked. And what CBS had with Charlie Rose and Gayle King on what was their new show to replace the early show with Harry Smith was incredible. And we saw a different side of Charlie Rose. We realized that Charlie Rose can do more than just black background interview one guy at a table. And he's good. Charlie Rose was good at that kind of stuff too. And it was a shocker that this was a versatile guy. It wasn't just some guy that was really good at asking questions. This was the real deal. Charlie Rose was the real deal, and a whole new generation of people was introduced to Charlie Rose in a whole new way. And we would all know if we understood anything, from journalism, that's the guy that sits in front of the black background and that we all have to learn interviewing from. But that's why I'm saying that this is not remixing real news like the first four, but everything after this, the sixth version of wherever we're at in LA or Las Vegas or whether we're still in Honolulu, it doesn't matter. That's going to be just talking about that template and drawing from examples from television stations and how to perfect what they're doing and weave an Ariadne's thread with AI's assistance in real time. And one of the things we're going to get into in the next podcast. So, if you want to just skip this, go ahead and skip it. But if you want to listen, go ahead and listen. We're not going to get into that stuff here. This is going to be next time. We're going to talk about next time. The Sonic Boom by Joel Beckerman. He wrote the CBS Evening News' theme for Scott Pelley. And it showed what an idiot he was when he had to put something on toward the end of his newscast saying, da 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 bum 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 ba da 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 bum bum ba da da bum. That sounds like, but he said that the new theme was a new tune for CBS News, and he had a whole segment on it and the progression of it, and the old Fox Patterson waltz, and before that the Trivers Myers, and when they reverted to Trivers Myers again by da 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 ba ba da ba ba da 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 ba da 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 ba 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 da ba ba da ba 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 dum. And so that's Trivers Myers, and then Fox Patterson waltz came in, and then they took that motif out of it, and they went da 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 bum, the timpani bum 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 da 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 da. Ba 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 ba. The trumpets. Bum 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 bum. Da 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 bum bum. Da 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 bum 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 bum. Dun 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 dun. And then Dan Rather. Dun, as Dan Rather reporting, and they already have the voiceover doing that, but Dan Rather, of course, doesn't know, and they don't see this stuff, because if you see your own My Legendary, already it's over. You're so out of reality. You can't see your own My Legendary. You can't hear the music. You can't hear the music in your earpiece. You can't see the graphic. You shouldn't. Katie Couric liked it, and I did like Katie Couric. I hate to say, I have a lot to say about that, but that's the future. That's for later. Long story with Katie Couric. Speaking of the theme music and going back to Scott Pelley's report on the theme music, that was the best CBS Evening News theme. Because that was by composer for Titanic, composer for Braveheart, the greatest next to John Williams, who did the NBC da 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 bum ba da da, The Mission. And that, by the way, brings in the motif of GEC, which is General Electric Corporation, which is the NBC broadcast. And you can just imagine John Williams to be this genius composer. He takes that da da da, the broadcast notes, and he imagines conversations happening inside of each, and he expands on it. Da 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 bum ba da da bum 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 ba da ba NBC da 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 da, the harp, the glissando, everything. And or that's not a glissando, whatever it is, whatever they call that, they run, whatever it is. Anyway, and that's stuff I have to know, because we're going to be learning, by the way, and this goes back to how this is not a podcast like any other. Because I'm not going to be talking about that news template. I'm going to be talking about other kinds of broadcasting, because in talking about other kinds of broadcasting, we're going to be learning what we need to know to do other kinds of broadcasting, other kinds of templates than the one that this podcast is about. What we need to know to stay relevant. Relevance is what it's about. Brian Williams, boom! And he was good. And I'm starting to think there might be some conspiracies behind how these people got raped. And so Dan Rather was the best. He had to go. And he was right. And he was right about it. But Brian Williams, he started appearing, and Brian Williams was too good to be a news anchor is what the problem was. So his talent could not be held back. He needed to take psychiatric drugs but no. And he had this very beautiful daughter that was having her ass eaten out and masturbating in a bathroom stall on the show Girls on HBO. And so, what she was doing for women was so heroic. His daughter's doing that. And he's so talented, as it turns out, that he's better than Justin Timberlake hosting Saturday Night Live. And he's doing better improv in the skits than any of the cast on SNL. Uh-oh. And so now he's on The Tonight Show. And he's making up bullshit about sniper fire. Uh-oh. He's too good for reality. So now we have to up Machiavelli, Brian Williams, and now he's on the 11th hour on MSNBC because he was good. And that show, if you ever watched it, I watched it from time to time. He would have crap photoshopped in, like when he was talking about Jack Parr on, one of he knew the history of NBC. And he would talk about Jack Parr, and he would Photoshop in the logo of the 11th Hour with Brian Williams on MSNBC into the Tonight Show desk of Jack Parr. There, he'd talk, and before he go to commercial. This was as he went to commercial, and he showed, he's Jack Parr. I'm Brian Williams. I'm Brian Williams. Jack Parr. I'm Tonight Show. Brian Williams. 11th Hour. That's desperate. And boy was he. So you know the thing with that. But we're not talking about the thing. We're going to break the third wall, and what we're talking about is other templates, because to stay relevant, we have to be doing this. We have to go on Olelo now, because they are doing this all across the country. This is what they did in Las Vegas. They had me sidelined inside of a jail cell for the better part of 3 years, so I couldn't fight back against public data being put off in California to where now you got to pay hundreds a month to these aggregator companies for everything in California for the owners of the property. And, these pesky salesmen that send postcards and make cold calls. But that data is to break into rich families. And I have to be sold out to Donald Trump, but I'm going to say something very controversial. I'm a Obama Republican. in the sense, and that's why I hate Barack Obama, is because he should have come out immediately because how mentally retarded Kamala Harris was and how much she failed for her African American community and the minorities in California when she couldn't win a lawsuit for shit for her people, her welfare people. And what Barack Obama should immediately come out and said, I endorse Donald J. Trump for president of the United States, and I guarantee he would have saved his legacy in unbelievable ways. And now he's appearing, Barack Obama's appeared again on an airplane to talk to veterans, that are on this veteran flight or whatever we saw in the last couple of days. Oh, we miss Obama. It's over because Donald Trump was doing it. And he would come out and say things at the Kamala Harris, like, we have to support the truth, the courage to defend the truth or whatever. And no, Donald Trump has Truth Social. That he's taking care of that. If he come out and said, nope, Kamala Harris tweeted that she could not win a lawsuit for shit. I'm a lawyer, I know my shit. Not all lawyers are created equal. Donald Trump just hires the best lawyers to take care of everybody. And he should have just come out and said, I guarantee if he when and the black community would have loved him even more because he should have just come out and said that we had a lot of work to do. We had a lot of work to do for America, and, it was going to take a long time. I couldn't do it in 8 years. And this is the man that's finishing the work that we set out to do. And it would have been incredible. And it definitely would have helped the numbers. And he didn't need it. And he won. Donald Trump won. They couldn't steal the election again. But the reason being that, while we're here in Honolulu, that we have all this property record and the mailing addresses of the property owners and the names of the property owners for every tax parcel. We have, on the mainland, they're usually called APN. Here in Hawaii, we have an unusual, it's the same thing. There's an assessor's parcel number, but it's technically called a tax map key here. Because for Hawaii, we have, the tax maps are all kind of under a unified system in each county, and they use what's called tax map keys with the island number at the beginning. Oahu is island number 1 because it's the number 1 island. So the APN, the PIN, or the APN is a tax map key. And the main point here being that is to break into rich family. That is to find concentrations of wealth. And California, these are high equity places. They're not. If people like me have to break into Michigan, people like me have to break into Alabama, because for someone like me, the only way. And so this is the plan, because we have, and so we're gonna have to work with Isaac Sharsh, HHH News, Hungry Hawaiian Man now, because he's got people that are dispatching him on his many dispatch consoles to these incidents to take his cell phone out and do the night crawling and film the stuff I used to do. That's the stuff I used to do. And so he's not getting, from what we're hearing, data from HPD like the media is. And so I'll put up a link here in the video and on all the platforms to go and find my article on that. I'm not going to get into it here, but frankly, HPD is now giving, from what we're hearing, and Lynn Kawano won't answer, and Brian Nakamine won't answer at KITV, Matt Piacenti at Hawaii News Now won't answer, and I'm going to put up the link to that article. Go look at it, get the details, learn it all. For whatever reason, they won't answer as to what the terms of this agreement are. But and it's okay. I know. This is what they had to do to bring Honolulu police to the table, to give them this information, because now they've got the council members on their side. The media should get real-time alerts, or close to real-time alerts. But in order to do this, we had to create Bill 46. So we're going to see where this goes. Hopefully, I have to oppose it. My position is I have to oppose this because it doesn't include me, and it doesn't include Isaac Sharsh, and it doesn't include other freelancers. And one of the things we have to look out for, too, is Isaac Sharsh could just be this guy they're using as a SIAC, and they're going to dirty him up big time and say he's selling drugs or something, so that it discredits me for saying his name. And I don't want to have to. And I should be competing with him, and I do want to be competing with him. But for someone like me, I shouldn't be having to create this, because that's right there an immediate monopoly. There's nothing we can do about it. If he's got this following, if he's got Zello dispatch screen and all these dispatch screens where people log in, or they send him an email or send him a text message, he's got these dispatch screens where he's got all these dispatchers that are keep an eye on this, keep an eye on this. Oh, there's something here, something here, something here. A text alert comes in from people. And most of the time, they just take the video, put it up on Instagram, and tag him in it so he can repost it or whatever. And that's really what you should do. So you can have your name on it too. But for some people, I don't have time. I saw something out the window. We'll send Isaac Sharsh, and so that's what they do. But they're not gonna log in to dispatch it to him and dispatch it to me. You see? And okay, there's nothing we can do about it. So they like him. There's no time to dispatch it to two people. I mean, but there's a tech way that it can be handled, right? But it has to be done where we link his to a forwarding number. You can do some, through, telephony stuff. And there's one number people can send stuff to, like a text message, and it forwards it to his multiple dispatch consoles and mine and other stringers that want to get involved. But we have to come together into a consortium on it, and it's just too cumbersome a solution. And really, he should be getting the data from HPD. I should be getting the data from HPD. Bill 46 explicitly excludes us because we're not legitimate media. And even worse, and this is why all the mainstream media, and there's other people that it excludes. And here's the way I look at it. Civil Beat, they've been around 10 years, I think, right? So anyway, we got to ask Perplexity. But yeah, they've been around 10 years. Aloha State Daily, from the guy that created Public Storage, the Orange Public Storage place, and he's the owner of that, and they got F. Scott Napier, or Cam Napier in there, they pretend to own it. He's the editor, doing Aloha State Daily. And there's too much journalism in Hawaii. There is too much journalism in Hawaii, and so we're going to learn, this podcast is about learning the media landscape here so we can synthesize and compare and contrast and, pit things versus Las Vegas, versus markets in California and all elsewhere across the country, so we can understand the dynamics that create the atmosphere of and the ecosystem of free speech in these areas, and talk about it more than just, put up an example of aesthetically how my Mathew F. Ursua template of the greatest newscast ever would, with an Ariadne's thread from the motion graphic open, different theme music every day, custom composed by, this is why we got to think about Joel Beckerman, because what CBS News did when Scott Pelley did that whole report on Joel Beckerman doing the new theme music, it sounds like the theme song to Stanley Steamer. Ba 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 da 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 ba da. Stanley Steamer gets your home cleaner. Da 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 ba. Da 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 da. But to stay relevant, we have to do it. We have to wear the suit. We have to get the Keahi Tucker suits. We got to put them in. We have to have My Legendary. And now, from Mapuna, from the Olelo Community Television World Headquarters at Mapuna Puna, this is Hawaii at 5 with Mathew Ursua. And I call it the My Legendary. That's when the camera on the dolly, and now we're going to put robotics, it's all robotically controlled, but the camera on the dolly is coming down a little bit, but it's moving around the anchor disc, and it's panning dramatic, da 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 da, and now, da 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 da, Mathew Ursua, da 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 da. Now, so we have to because to stay relevant, because the Sharsh now is doing that, so we have to go mainstream with our welfare. And this, so to get straight into it, that the encryption of the radios and the exclusion of independent photographers and the removal of a stringer culture in here and places that aren't LA. And by the way, I gotta say this. He's going on tangents. He's schizophrenic. He needs to take medication. No, it's all true. There's truth you need to hear, which is they're going to corral us all in Los Angeles, have us work for epinephrine media. They're the Nightcrawler guy. And, we go around, do this stuff, make a couple bucks here and there, and then watch them move to encrypt all the radios in larger metro areas of big skyscrapers too, like Los Angeles. And watch them now, that'll never happen. Well, yes, for the moment, that's what the lawyers are defending. And by the way, not to make excuses, because in Las Vegas, we do get fire department. And even if that does happen with LAPD, it should never happen with LAPD. Even if that does happen with LAPD, we would still get all the fire department in LA. But because it's all under Homeland Security, watch them move in the next decade. This is something to watch out for. Just like I was talking about Barack Obama and the Open Data Initiative, because that's to break into rich families. That's to identify concentrations of wealth so we can write letters at early ages. Because the younger you are, at my age, it's creepy. At my age, you should have argued for that 20 years ago. But by the way, and that's why I wrote the book, like that guy that hosts, the on Think Tech Hawaii that has the bomb, that, schizophrenic text, and I'm whatever his name is, and that's why I wrote the book, because it's about and he puts on third-rate people that has nothing to do with engineering. Because she married an engineer, Lauren Day from KHON2. Okay, it's just so we can show off what an engineer gets if you're paid out $100,000 plus a year to know calculus, Hawaiian calculus. Man, look at the kind of girl we can get you. Put Lauren Day on, talk about. But on Christina Locklear, KHON, they had to get her a degree. HPU had to get her a degree so she could do that stuff, fuck up the world that way. General manager KHON. So let's put her on, and he can have all these beautiful ladies queef on him. So. And he gets to have this program so these women can queef on him like that. Christina Locklear is a real cutie, I have to say. But, what we call cougar, she is. But he gets to, they have, that's why I wrote the book, is to eat the pussies of all of these very important media figures in Hawaii before we send them off to their engineers that are going to marry them, because we hook you up with, if you're an engineer, that guy on there with the creepy smile, whatever, what's his, that's why I have the computer, the netbook, the 5-year-old netbook. That was, let's see here. What's this? Think Tech, Hawaii, Lauren Day. No, let's go Christina Lock, KRIST, Christina Lockwood. Wormwood. The stars were made beyond the lines. It's called Beyond the Lines. And this guy that hosts it. What's his name? We're gonna see. You gotta see this. Hawaii's global future. It's schizophrenia text. And there's a dog. Donate to Think Tech. Beyond the Lines. KHON2 General Manager Christina Lockwood.
Hi, I'm Rusty Komori, and this is
Rusty Komori
is the name. We're broadcasting live from the beautiful Think Tech Hawaii TV studio in the Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. This show is based on my book, which is also titled Beyond the Lines, and it's about leadership, creating a superior culture of excellence, and building winning teams. Today's special guest is an outstanding leader and the general manager of KHON2. She is Christina Lockwood, and today we are going beyond the news. Hey, Christina.
Hi, Rusty. How are you?
Great.
Great to be eating your pussy on my show. I wrote the book to do that. Okay, so look. I'm fucking allergic to reality. I'm one of these people that has to put nasal spray in his nose. Don't be fooled. And we're going to talk about my fitness. And gym memberships are 100% medical necessity for me, just like sex is 100% medical necessity for me, because without it, I have to be psychiatrically drugged. And one of the things we're going to be getting into, and this is why I can never be mainstream, because they are, so and they have to admit this, and you should ask Maleka Lincoln about this. Wow, just wow. Yeah, and ask her, is it not true that journalism is a bogus bullshit? Like Josh Green, the governor, likes to say bullshit a lot. Well, I think journalism is a bogus bullshit. It is a bullshit field made up by lawyers to and the ethics. And I've got the paper. I have their magic pyramid. I have Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics. Someone has to say we have to be out from under these ethics with regards to Bill 46. And again, click on the link, learn about it. Why journalists have to turn on these ethics, because you could actually say, and this can be taken out of context and be right 100% of the time. Just look at the Code of Ethics. It looks like they can't even follow their own ethics. Or right, case by case basis. So this is all just so we don't talk about it. This is all just so that whatever the gray television corporate news judgment says to focus on, or our brainwashing by corporate society says to focus on. That's why I can never be mainstream. I'm Keahi Tucker wearing the Keahi Tucker suit on Olelo News and Views live at 5 o'clock. And it's going to be a newscast unlike any other. We're going to win 30 Emmys, and we're going to be everybody, all of them. And people are going to be flipping up into the 50s on television. Channel 54, Channel 56, Olelo, all the Olelo channels. People are going to be flipping up into the 50s, blazing past KHON, KGMB, KHNL, KITV to watch me stay relevant, be relevant, and put up sharp images, HHH images, with that crappy, I don't like it, HHH newsy. But we're going to put it. And because we're welfare and we're free, we're gonna have to put people's watermarks on shit. Like airline news videos, if there's an emergency landing in LAX of a plane that I divert or whatever from Honolulu, like I had written that the plane Delta 357 that came out of Honolulu the previous night, 4 hours into the flight, boom, we had to shut down that engine. And immediately, if they're using Squawk 7700, that's emergency. You know, and I like drama. I would want to queue up the ATC where if they say Mayday, 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 or Pan Pan, or if they just say we need priority, but they activate 7700. If they say Mayday, I want to hear them say that, because that's Mayday, air disaster on YouTube. This stuff we have to learn. Learn about all of that. But that's when they say that is a boom, dong, and we put that on. But we're gonna have to, as we await the aircraft's approach at LAX, we're gonna have to help airline videos live, Ray, whatever his name is. Oh, here's the computer. That's why we have a computer. I just wrote about this. But, that's why I need to be hooked up with a teleprompter. Because we're too high level, like the Donald Trump, where you need all these people helping you. And I just read from the teleprompter. Here we go. Hawaii media should have ran Delta 357 as breaking news. Also, Salt Lake City media. And I made up the new rule, the Bill Maher new rule, that whenever there's an aircraft emergency, it's news one where it came from. Yes, even if massive hubs and massive metro areas where fewer passengers could have people on the ground. They care if their loved ones are in that. For instance, LAX, and 2, where it's going, and 3, where it makes an emergency landing. But the guy, his name is... Kevin Ray. His name is Kevin Ray. So broadcasting from rooftop perch at the H Hotel. That's a beautiful area. H Hotel near LAX. And that's where LA Times is now. In that area, Imperial. H Hotel near LAX. Kevin Ray's airline videos, live streams, high definition live footage of planes arriving and departing. And so we have to put up, because we got to use it. And so we just call up Kevin Ray and say, hey, we're going to use this. Yeah, as long as you put Just put the YouTube stream up and show 24-hour live cameras. Put up H Hotel, show my graphics, and show every plane. It shows so people get interested in that, and it shows all the fire trucks and everything waiting. So we're gonna have to put up water. We're gonna have to put up that HHH News with a Z of Isaac Sharsh on Olelo. So we're gonna have to use him as the official string report and take advantage of what everyone's doing to prop him up to beat mainstream media. We're welfare, man. And we're going to have all these watermarks on things, and we're going to have people, streaming from their phones, volunteer reporters out at scenes. But it's going to be incredible, and we have to do that to stay relevant, because what HPD is doing and all across the country where they have encryption, this is about eugenics. This is actually about eugenics and having net worth, multi-generational wealth align with IQ. And Trump kind of follows this template. Look what he did to Tiffany. Tiffany Esquire. Yeah. I don't believe in it. I think people should have a chance at having money to compensate for their IQ so they can still marry Lauren Taruya, pay for a varsity blues degree, and pay for stolen valor if they have to. Why can't Kate Shuddy hook them up with that? Supposedly they can't anymore. I don't know about that. Maybe a Sharky Christina Lockwood knows a thing or two about it. I don't know. But that's what I believe in. Money should compensate for everything, and it does. And that's why I talk about we got to get into. But there's another way. So, we do what we have to. We have to buy up properties in Michigan. We have to buy up properties in Alabama so I can get myself a human repro eligible young beauty queen. And even better, if we get rich, but we have to be realistic for the first wife, that it may have to be from Miss America. I may not be able to have Miss Universe. And look what they did. But there's always another year. And she's okay, Miss Mexico. But who knows? And it could be a lot of things. But if I own $5 million worth of, say, single-family homes in Michigan and in Alabama and other, say, Ohio, Toledo, cheap area. California's old, none of it's cheap area. But if I own, say, $5 million, that would qualify me for the next Lauren Taruya, right? But for the next wife and the next and the next, to take that to the next level, we have to get out of single-family homes and into fourplexes and then into apartment buildings. And Grant Cardone says just go right into apartment buildings. But we have to do everything we can to get title to whatever we can. And there's something called subject to. And it isn't that easy. These things are they're not get-rich-quick schemes. With real estate, you can never say it's a get-rich-quick scheme. This is better than what Kevin Trudeau, and that's the thing with Kevin Trudeau. I like Kevin Trudeau. I think that he spent 8 years in jail, so we're told, is a bunch of garbage. He should not have been. This is a man that has a free speech right to promote his books. Something's wrong with all of that. But he never taught people to buy real estate. With real estate, you can never say it's a get-rich-quick scheme. You can never say the person is a victim of a scam because you got title. That's something. And it's better than nothing. And that's what we have to get fast so that I can qualify for the kind of female that I desire. And it is a justification for me to have money that I think that way, that I want varsity blues, I want stolen valor. Because now everybody, they're moving toward military. Everybody has to have been military. And anyway, I'm going to talk also about another thing that we are seeing as we're analyzing Hawaii news, which is that everybody has to be eugenic now. I think reporters should be sickly, weak people that are jealous of people with ability. That's how you win the real Pulitzer. But now everybody has to be eugenic. Oh, look at Lei Fukalaka Ua Kulalahua, that she's rappelling down a building. Look at Kimber Collins. She's holding her breath underwater. She's Miss Scuba Queen America. Even Catherine Toth, Sincerely Cat, our Substack genius of Hawaii, that has a degree from Northwestern. She shows herself, Medill, she shows herself on a surfboard. And that's dangerous stuff, And you have to be able to do, and Meleka Lincoln, when she signed off from Facebook for the last time before a 10-year-long Machiavelli from Hawaii News Now, whatever she was doing, she was on this dangerous hike. I don't recall what it was. It was Honolulu Trail or whatever it was. It might have even been an illegal hike. I don't know. Carefully verify facts, right? I'm not going to go into the computer and look. But you have to be eugenic. You have to be coordinated. I'm not coordinated. I have a weak brain. In order to do logic, it sucks energy from what little cognitive power I have. That's why I need to be hooked up with a teleprompter in a bar. But we got to be on Olelo doing this. But I don't like gray suits. In fact, let's just call it Donald Trump suit. I like that look, actually. The drab look of Trump family. And I like women that dress like Ivanka. I was always attracted to Ivanka. Back when they had Britney Spears out, and I was in middle school, everyone was like, oh, Britney Spears, Britney Spears, Britney Spears, and, jacking off in the bathroom to thoughts of Britney Spears. Piece of me. But I thought correctly. I jacked off in the bathroom to Ivanka Trump. And then Jared comes along. When am I going to get to be Jared? To someone. Hedge fund. Incorporated into a rich family like that. So, especially when you're younger kids. And now California has made it so you got to pay all this money to get the data. But in other places, California is where a lot of wealth is concentrated. Because one of the tenets of the California real estate market is the high price of real estate. California is expensive, man. And for families that already own apartment buildings, 16 unit, 32 unit, because it's so expensive, they hold on to that, they get all that rental income. Sure, they could cash out into and upgrade into more units that bring in more cash flow relative to the cost, right? Or in emerging markets. But they're pretty well off in California. And if you've got a single family home in California or just a fourplex, then in that case, you should really probably get rid of it. And everything's subject to my general disclaimer, which is I don't give investment advice. But the more units you have, so you find these companies that have these 16, 32 unit, 60 unit apartment buildings in California, where things are very expensive, rental communities, and you find the families, and you, at the age of 16, 17, even 14, 15, say, I want to marry one of the beautiful daughters you have, that, I think she should own a Westfield Mall, and that's what you have to do, to break into a rich family, to be the Jared Kushner for one of these beautiful women. And that's what we like about Barack Obama, is he started the Open Data Initiative so that we can, at an early age, write these letters. Now, that's the problem with psychiatry. That was my insanity. That's what I was starting to do. Especially as we advanced through middle school and through, at a student at Radford High School. And they put you on medication, and they have someone as brilliant as I am should have been going to Iolani or Punahou, because we're not touched by the low-level crab bucket mentality of public school where you have to take medication, you have to go to forced psychotherapy on campus so that when you're on that medication, they can stop your thinking as you're thinking about how to escape poor reality and marry into rich family. And incredible beauty. Ideal partner. 10-scale topping babe. California. And so we have to keep our eye out, just like we're going to corral us all into LA and watch them encrypt everything anyway. So we still got to be on guard there against Homeland Security. And they could make the argument that Homeland, because of how America works, one of the tenets of Homeland Security in the lifestyle that the military defends and that we have to defend through so-called Homeland Security is the encryption of the rich. Making it cost $700 a month to access the owners of properties in California easily, with a JSON query and with APIs, making it cost that much is the encryption of the rich. So our kids can't break in. If we've got someone like me that was smarter than any of his parents, smarter than any, and they want to write these letters to people in, to families in California, say, I want to marry one of your rich daughters. At my age, it's creepy. But in my defense, I was the victim of crab bucket mentality, where the proximate cause is psychiatry. Because that's what they use, psychiatry, to slow the person down and make sure that a therapist, as soon as you start talking about this stuff in the school, about marrying into a rich family, I should be going to Punahou, shut down the brain, shut down the thinking. Make you focus on your special ed reality, when you could easily escape that. Because you're a fucking genius. If I had not been psychiatrically medicated, what it does, it slows you down. And so having been force medicated on Haldol at the mental ward in the last year in Nevada, it taught me a lot, because this is a first generation typical antipsychotic. I don't believe anything they say about it. It's not weight neutral. I gained all this weight back. I'm 80 pounds overweight. That's why gym memberships are a medical necessity for me. I don't have good genes. I can't have like Drew Offwallow and Kimber Collins. I don't think they should either. It sets a bad example. But if you've got good genes, I guess, like Donald Trump, somehow he's fat and he's been able to live until 90. I don't know how he does it. But I can't have that kind of weight on me. I don't have good genes. So my health is in danger by being 80 pounds overweight. I have to rapidly get that down. So we're going to the gym, but that's not something we can guarantee. It's paycheck to paycheck, month to month, donation, in my case, donation to donation for charitable people, and so that's why I need you. But the reason why Honolulu Police and Homeland Security and the media want to be the gatekeepers and keep stringers from doing stuff like this, and I would get back into that bigly here, is because it becomes an argument to marry Lauren Taruya. And so, right, really. And so look at all this. Look, I brought LA-style stringer photography to Hawaii, and he's still out there doing that. He's taking these beautiful pictures with old equipment, and it just shows he's got this eye for it. And by the way, we have to talk about it. But the reason why my pictures is because my pictures suck. It's because I was on psychiatric medication. And you think I'm crazy for saying this, but the way that medication works is it weakens your discernment to beauty so that you can date uglier and less ideal, physically and mentally, women. That's how that medication works. It's all about eugenics. It's evil. It's evil. And what it did to me, you got to read my book, Comeback of the Century. I have a picture of my penis in that book. My penis is not even an inch long, flaccid. And it's not much better the other way. What that medication did to my other brain down there is 100% a reflection of what it did to my brain behind my eyes. It shrinks your brain. It prevents you from developing. I'm mentally 11 in so many ways because I was on that medication, and it slows you down to be selectively disabled and brought into compliance with your social reality, your social class reality, your cognitive reality. To be just this contributing member of society. So the police don't want people, by having a camera and taking pictures and making an argument, to marry a beauty queen, because they don't get hooked up with that. Not even most people in the Marine Corps that become police officers get hooked up with that. Marry Miss Hawaii, marry Miss California, Miss America. Charlie Kirk kind of hook up. Beauty queen. You know, they don't get that. So because they're so jealous of people that are, you know, don't even need a college degree to do it, making an argument to marry a woman that went to Iolani, got a degree from USC, from LA, kind of thing. Yeah, it's about eugenics. Bill 46 is about eugenics. And it's about crab bucket mentality. If we can't use psychiatry on him to slow him down, he's going to run and he's going to move quickly and he's going to get the shot. He should be shot. He wears a ballistic vest because there's so much gun violence. We're not going to let him get to these scenes because he doesn't get Laurent Arroyo. But my pictures would be a lot better off the medication. I studied composition. I studied the the ratios, the archetypes. I call it archetypes because more important than, you know, the compositions, it's all a fluid thing. And it goes to focal length, it goes to... And it is very technical. A lot of people say, don't talk about the gear. Yeah, Canon, Nikon, Sony, whatever camera, just spend a minute with it, just like a pilot on a disabled Mayday air disaster on a disabled airplane has to configure it with its new limitations and get a sense of its, you know, what you can do with the controls so that, you know, when you're approaching for the landing to bring the thing down safely, you know how to operate the controls. The play is a different disabled configuration. You have to know how much to compensate this way, that way, how long it's going to take to make a left turn, a right turn, how to coordinate the turn, if we're going to be able to coordinate a turn at this angle. So, you know, get a camera in my hands, and but any camera, and it doesn't matter what, and it has to do with field of view, focal length. That's all the same. Sensor size, of course, but that's all the same. You know, it's all standard. It just, you'll figure out how to change the aperture, change the shutter speeds, all exposure triangle, triangulation stuff. Spot metering is still the best way to go for most things. Oh, the auto exposure has gotten so good. Well, that's nice. But if you have to. And even today, with these cameras, I hate to say, I guarantee it, that in the best lighting scenarios for the most important photographs, you've got one shot to take that photograph. Spot metering is still the best way to go. Spot meter this, highlight shadows. There you go. And I'm talking about chiaroscuro. I'm talking about when a pinpoint of light is hitting one person's face for just a moment. And you know what I mean? And so that's still the best way to do it. That's the best kind of shot. But the reason my photos were so poorly composed and often blurry and out of focus, even when it was good equipment, isn't because of the camera. It was because of me. That's why I sucked at it. But by the way, to my credit, I was there. No one else went there. I went there. Over 2,000 photos on Flickr is a much bigger thing than 30 Emmys. But I was there, you know, and to my credit. But I was on psychiatric drugs. And so the consequence of having your discernment dulled so that you can date uglier women with lower IQs and not, you know, make the argument for stolen valor and varsity blues and not write letters to rich families in California while you still have the Obama data to marry into their families, that the price of that, being brought into your socioeconomic reality, and you don't like your community, you just know you're meant for more, you're meant to have a larger footprint, more money, more power, more tickets on airplanes to have lives that are bigger than just in one local place with a 30-year mortgage, with a, you know, hookup job to pay that. No. I'm someone that's meant to live in 3 or 4 states at the same time and have business interests here, there, and everywhere. And you know that, and so you want to marry into, so you want to write these letters, and as soon as you start talking about it, immediately you're getting distracted. You get a skills trainer to follow you around, and you need skills trainer, and you start talking about this stuff with people, and even when it's a conversation is going somewhere with someone, whoa, you know, we can't allow this kind of genius where you're talking about how to write letters to families in California to marry into their rich families. that's something we can't have you talking about. We gotta have you talking about things based in reality. Like, did you watch the NFL football game on Sunday? Now, this is the key, and that's why we're saying, and we have to wrap this up. We don't have a lot of time, but we don't want to keep people for more than an hour. This is, again, you could have just skipped this if you wanted to listen. And we're going to be getting back into the real thing. And this is why another reason I could have been put away for so long is because they didn't want me actually connecting with Hollywood and saying, let's do this. Because what this is about is me dominating because of my send lowest looking story of, reporter journalism. Once I was a reporter, the Stations of the Cross of my reporter religion, which will never die, because like two friends on a perfect day, relationships change form and sometimes can get very nasty, and it shouldn't be that way. When Michael Bernard Beckwith, Agape International Spiritual Center, divorced Ricky Byers Beckwith, I was actually watching on the live stream when that announcement was made, and it was the most amicable thing, and it made me think to myself, who would ever do domestic violence? Why would you need to? I guess if you're poor and you're trapped in these situations where your existence depends on, and we should all just be so rich that we can end things when, like Donald Trump, and still leave the kids okay. And I guess Tiffany, even though we can't give her $500 million because she's a little too retarded, we'll let her be a lawyer. Use logic. Right? Because logic. What trumps logic? Money. Money trumps all logic, if you have enough of it. We should all just have enough of it to not be under the social institution of marriage to the extent that it ends up killing us. And that's a problem. But he was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to escape it. And he's been saying things lately to keep people under it, like with his red hat. I wasn't fortunate enough to be able to just have one marriage. I that's one area of my life. And I think this was him talking at the Alabama graduation. I don't recall exactly, but he said that. And okay. So we don't feel too bad about it. But he was fortunate enough to be able to escape and make sure the kids. But not everybody else is, and we should be. And I talked about Thanksgiving yesterday. It was Thanksgiving. This is the day after Thanksgiving. This is the 28th of November. We talked about Thanksgiving and all the fixings and the new wealth narrative. And random girl goes to Mauna Loa High School, is on the golf team, does all this golfing around. And a lot of people, Oahu's not a destination. The beaches in Australia are beautiful. They're big, beautiful beaches. The beaches are even in Waimanalo. The beaches are there's not enough sand. There's not enough space. In fact, you go to Oceanside even. It's a big, beautiful beach in San Diego. We don't have that on Oahu. So what is the tourist attraction actually? I don't know. Anyway. And speaking of, I have to go on a tangent. Speaking of statistical significance and population, are we going to be seeing the Hawaiian Airlines brand disappear? And it's now being, I thought maybe it'd be run by Continental, or rather United Airlines, or be run by Delta, or be run by, but it turns out Alaska Airlines, which is perfect, from the standpoint of indigenous, Inuit, it's the non-contiguous 48 states. It's not the Continental. And we're going to start seeing these airlines run these, buy out these airlines and still run the airline experience for the locals. Like, what if Alaska gets bought out? Right? It triggers all of these, monopoly, but there's nothing we can do. And it might be the best thing for customers. United Airlines might buy out Alaska at some point. So it might have to run the Alaska experience and the Hawaiian experience. But could we see Hawaiian Airlines phase out? And what we have to look at for that, and people are saying, no, it's not going to happen, is business reality. If people care enough about something, but this is about, because this is all coming from the mainland, you can say it's a good thing or a bad thing. And for people that say it's a bad thing, in the case of Bill 46, I'm with you, because Gray Television, Nexstar, they don't care about us. more than it makes them money there. Their shareholders are there. Now, I mean, you talk about the logic underlying their care for local communities. I mean, if they just absolutely shit on a place, no one's going to watch anymore. It's not going to help the advertiser. So to an extent, they have to pretend to care. But up to that point is how much they have to pretend to care and make it look like they care about the local community. And one of the things we're going to be talking about too is I don't know, and that's the importance of the Ulu Ulu library, and we have this massive paywall on all of the archives of Honolulu or Hawaii newscasts, and they're all at this archive in Chicago with Exposure Media, and it used to be locally, but that was bought out. And instead of giving it to the Ulu Ulu library in UH West Oahu to catalog and archive, they decided to just give it to this place in Chicago. I don't think it should be that way. I said Piero Midyar or the Aloha State Daily billionaire that owns Public Storage, that should pay for, if they care enough about the public, should pay for having all of that archived and made public, so that, and these were FCC regulated airwaves, so that we can go down to the Ulu Ulu library and log into a website and take a little screenshot, rip the video off, and put up, so we can criticize public figures, look back, and also for a journalism student or for anyone that wants to say something about how the media industry used to be, and make connections, talk about things like, journalism ethics and news judgment and what was considered important and what were the ads on TV, all of that stuff. That's the kind of stuff that anyone should be able to talk about, and just like why I make my photos Creative Commons. I'm not that kind of stringer. I was never that kind of stringer where, they're going to, I got a payment portal hookup from On-Scene TV, and they pay me a little money. I was the person that said, no, I want to give all of this, especially when I turned the cameras on the reporters, especially when I went to press conferences and just took pictures of news events. And this was under the Bill Brennan press director administration of Kirk Caldwell that this all kind of took shape. And Peter, it was to put this on a timeline, but during that administration, anyone could go in, put their email address, and they would get the press releases sent. And these were basic, bare bones press releases that said for immediate release from Bill Brennan or their staff there. Now, what Blanche Yardy is doing is running a full TV station, a full news operation, and I don't like it. But they they have reporters there, and they've got Ian Shearing running it, and they've got Scott Humber running it from Hawaii News Now, and they've got, if you go onto their website, they've got reports. So they don't have press releases. They send to people that subscribe to them. That's how the media used to get city news. They would have subscribe to that, and it would come to their email. I would get it too. So I would go to these press conferences, and it's no mistake, and this is something I'm going to talk about as I look back on history, is one of the earliest things I did was I went to this press conference for the unveiling of the Kiss photo statue from World War II. It was a Time Life photograph, and it was World War II, and it was that massive march. Was it V-Day, VJ Day, whatever it's called, whatever that was. It was, the photo. And so they all came back, and, I should know it's VJ, the Christina Jedra, CG, whatever it's called. And so they all came back, and then she grabs this lady, the sailor grabs the lady, was a nurse or something, it turns out to be, and kisses her, and the photographer captures the photo, and it is iconic. It says everything about the end of World War II. This is America. It says so much. And so they had this statue of it, which, and the way I look at it is it was fucked up perfectly because the statue is crappy, and it's color, and it's like, there's no way to give life to a photograph that way. It's like when they unveil a bronze bust or bronze relief of someone, especially if it's NFL. Well, I mean, and it's like, what the fuck is that? Like that new bronze statue of Donald Trump. What the fuck is that? That doesn't look like the person, or just it's a complete joke. Or wax figure. There's no way that a photograph's a photograph, and it's already removed enough from reality to where it's perfect. And there's no way to replicate it. That's the beauty of photography. It's the focal length of the focal length is based on 35 millimeters, based on medium format. We could change the whole thing up. We could create a whole new standard of systems, but the way it is, and it's that way for a reason. And, you know, as we get into the world of high ISO, and I'm talking about 10-year-old stuff. You know, we've gone into that already, but I'm talking about, it's been so long since I've been on top of things as much as I should be, and they put me away for this. But that say, you know, we're now getting into this era of, 100 ISO, 200 ISO, 400 ISO, 800 ISO. This was Fujifilm, this was Kodak, and was film, and that's what you had. And if it was really, really bad, you had to go up to 800 ISO, and that was some grainy stuff, and ideally you don't have to do that. And it was color, oh boy. You know? And now we got 1600, now we got 3200, now we got 100,000 ISO, and now we're up way beyond that, and it's looking really good. Night photography. But that's not always the best way to do it. Is now, and you know, it reduces dynamic range, but you can take pictures of things in low light in a way that you didn't used to be able to. Should you push your camera to those extremes? You know, and that this goes to aesthetics, this goes to, I think it should all be based on the limitations we were dealing with circa 1999, circa 2004. And there's a lot you can do with equipment now, but the beauty of photography is that it is removed from reality. It's not quite reality, and therefore it is, even when you're being objective, even when you're not, you know, even when you're doing it for photojournalism purposes and you're complying with, you know, modify this or that it is already removed from reality enough to be beautiful, even when it's someone's brain's being blown out, even when someone's arm is being blown off the body, even when it's IED explosion, war zone, even when it's, you know, burned out buildings, and like James Knockway would pull it back to 16 millimeters ultra wide and just have the kid's eyes and forehead and distorted perspective. And people would criticize him for it being distorted perspective, and it would, you know, make it look more dramatic than it really was. But hey, 16 millimeters is a setting you can have on a camera, and now you can go back to 11. I don't like that. I'm seeing a lot of people going back to 11. I think Civil Beat's also doing that, whoever the new photographer is there. I like their muted look. I like the muted look he gives it, the modern, you know, Civil Beat photos. I like their filter. It's that newsprint look. I like it. But they pull back to like 11 millimeters. I think we should only pull back to 16. And it's not out of ethics. It's just the limitations of photography circa 2004. Photojournalism should be a retro thing because it is classic. And so if you're in low light, instead of going up to ISO 120,000 or 140,000 to see everything, you should operate your camera within the limitations of 2004, maybe 2006, like when you had a 1D Mark II, let's say, or the original 5D. You know, to give you gear examples, and work with that only. Because those photographs, because it's low ISO, they still come out. And even though you can go up to that extent now without it being super grainy, like 6400 on a 7D, you know, with a crop sensor. But that's what I'm talking about, is to give you an idea. Just because your camera can, should you? And the best photographs are still taken within the limitations of classic photojournalism era. Because the capabilities of the camera allow things that now you can't. You know, when you had to wait for the first responders to appear within a flash of light coming from the fire truck or the ambulance, or you had to wait for. But now you can bump things up and zoom in and or zoom all the way out, and dynamic. You know, you can make it so there's more range, you know, between highlights and shadows, and it takes in, and you can get the concrete and the red light shining from the fire truck and the gurney going into the ambulance, and you've got this perfect triangle, and there's you know, city lights in the back or nothing in the back, or just, you know, little waves of Pacific Ocean rolling up against the shoreline and a road, but and you just know this one I'm just gonna this it's small because I'm looking down on a telephoto. If you take into account the limitations from 2004 to 2006, you can't capture all of that detail. So you have to zoom in more. You have to wait for it to appear right in that certain kind of light. And those photographs are better because they all are classic photographs. Just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. And the prize-winning photographs are taken within, even though you've got new equipment, the limitations of photography equipment dating back to the 90s and the 2000s, and they're shot within film limitations, actually. ISO 400, ISO 800, you know. Now, the last thing I want to say, since we talked about Bill 46 being about eugenics, is, and so, you know, again, this was a Remixing Real News unlike any other. This was not about the template at all. We broke the third wall. We're talking about other kinds, and we're now in a different world. We broke through the glass ceiling, broke the third wall, broke through the glass ceiling, looked down on everything, ran on the glass ceiling, and boom, and rappelled down from the glass ceiling like Le Fukalaka coming down a skyscraper into a whole different world where we're not talking about this epic newscast template. We just decided to take a little break from that just one time. And in order to talk about the challenges facing journalism, and the challenges facing society, and the challenges facing mass communication, the challenges facing the direction of the world, which is because I said that journalism and that broadcast news needs to be this is a healing instrument. This is a healing instrument. And so we have to look at everything else. And so being Donald Trump on Olelo, my being Donald Trump sitting at that anchor desk with the camera panning. And by the way, I'm kind of being funny because when Star Advertiser comes, every time it's TV, if it's TV, they got to bring in Star Advertiser, and they bring in midweek, and they do a whole section about the TV news. You know, it's because they have to. Oh, it's TV. You should just read it. Oh, TV. You know what a joke is? TV. And so they have to have their media reporter or columnist come in and do a whole story on me and the news team, and they're gonna come in there. Take picture of me, but I'm going to stand in front of the newly upgraded, state-of-the-art anchor desk with the cameras doing the My Legendary on robotics and all this incredible equipment and lighting. And I'm going to point out the window, and say, we're taking this out there because that's something I rarely want to use. And that's for the other people doing programming. That's for... Not, for certain things, but I'm going to point out there and say he's going to take it out there. He's taking it out there because really, what I'm going to do is, and this goes to also, I think they should do this a lot on my epic newscast. But I'm not, like I'm saying, I'm not doing the big show. This is not about the big show. The past 4 podcasts were about the big show. This 5th podcast, it's been a long hiatus, is not about the big show. And then the next podcast, we're going back to the big show. I'm talking about Charlie Rose doing something different. Versatile, talented, broadcaster, pioneer, Mathew Ursua. This is about a different, so I can do a lot of things. This is more traditional teleprompter read, and then My Legendary pans in. But I'm going to point, we're going out there. We're taking this studio out there because this is about 2 steady cams panning around me. Just like when I came up with the idea for disaster images, and we're gonna talk a little more about that also. But it was not called, but it was for K5, and this is something I came up with. I created Dan Abrams Live PD. I created Dan Abrams on Patrol Live, and it was going to be for Oahu, but I had plans to take that trademark, do all kinds of things, sell it to producers, and then take that model and sell it to other. And we had, Raycom at the time owned the New Media Center, so it was to pitch to K5, and because they had a lot of news operations, it was a good thing on KGMB and KHNL. Okay, we can't really use studio there, we can't really use too much of but they've got a great control center, so okay, we'll just use the remotes. And this was just as they were coming out with the backpack transmitters, and back then we didn't have 5G, so they used link bonding, and they had 2 cell phone SIM cards and antennas inside of this backpack, and it would balance the load over 2 mobile broadband connections, and you could go up to 720p maybe, but it was HD, and it was like, so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I have an idea. To keep my disaster images trademark and brand alive, we have to have, no, not disaster images now, yes, disaster images now, okay? I wanted it to be called disaster images now. I wasn't going to host I was going to host the thing, but because we couldn't use the New Media Center, we called it the state-of-the-art Media Center, Hard and Waikimilo, da-da-bum-ba. Back then, it was something a little different, but this is, and it was going to be, they have this state-of-the-art where KHNL, and they had Howard Deshevsky, and Howard Deshevsky was ousted, and then he immediately was re-picked up by KHON too. And I'll never forget. And by the way, Howard Deshevsky is now back at the anchor, but it used to be that wasn't the case, and he had to be on fight. His first job, he was the anchor man of KHNL, Diana Co. And what happened to Howard Deshevsky and all these, and so KHON picks him up, Fox affiliate, and there he is. Be nice to the people you meet on the way up, and tongue out their pussies too sometimes, to be extra nice to them, because you're the same people you're gonna see on the way back down. These are the life lessons of our DOE elementary school teacher. Howard Deshevsky had to say back to you, Joe. I mean, I don't like that kind of language, but thank you, Howard. And it's weird. By the way, speaking of broadcast journalism and learning the broadcast template, since this is not the Epic template, this is another thing entirely where we ran across the glass ceiling after breaking through it out of the Big Show, and now we broke back into the glass ceiling in something else that's not the Big Show, rappelled down like lay fucka in down the skyscraper into something else that's not the Big Show. Joe Moore would always, he's a genius, and he uses a slowed down template, and he reads from a teleprompter. He's a better actor than Pat Sajak. It's the way he enunciates. But there was a reporter that was covering, and all he had to do was walk right across Ala Moana Boulevard, but there was a tsunami. And well, where's the tsunami, right? And we're waiting for it, and it came, and then finally they called it off the warning, and there was a little wave, and then it came back, and then that's what the reporter saw, and he reported on it from right across the street of Hawaii Tower. I don't know, were they at Hawaii Tower at the time? This might have been before they were at Hawaii Tower, but KHON. Anyway, so they were there, and so the reporter was there, and Joe Moore, and Joe Moore asks a follow-up question. Oh boy! When that happens, you gotta be good. At KHON, you gotta be good. Because when Joe Moore asks the follow-up question, he asks, well, what happened to the tsunami? And the reporter was just dumbfounded. And that's an interesting question, because that's a difficult one. If you gotta think on your feet, I would never do that to people. We don't do that to people at Olelo, but we do explain to you what happened to the tsunami. And by the way, one of the classic questions, but it's a good way to think about things. You should be thinking as you're reporting, what happened to the tsunami? Joe Moore is going to ask, what happened to the tsunami? What happened to the ball? Is a question we all know to ask, because you're in your cub days reporting for the newspaper, and I mean, if kid runs out chasing a ball, boom, is hit, killed, brains on the sidewalk, 25 miles an hour, because the car hit him because he was running after a ball, and you forget to ask the investigator what happened to the ball, people are going to want to know what happened to the ball. And that may become a very important thing to put in the story, depending on the other facts that you have, because, I mean, it may be cut out. It's something that probably be down there in the inverted pyramid, but that's what the whole thing with covering these stories is it's about keep your kids safe, right? And these are things we all need to be reminded about and know about. What happened to the ball was just fine or not? Did the ball get blown up? Did they know what happened to the ball? Police don't know what happened to the ball. You should ask what happened to the ball. And we saw news that here we have that big radar that looks like a golf ball. It's like a ping pong ball in Pearl Harbor, and you see it on the skyline reel. But they took the ball off, and so it's interesting. There's another use of the question: what happened to the ball? And that was just the gray stuff. Looks like kind of it's all the radar reader thing in there, but there's a gray ball around it normally. What happens to the ball is a good question. That ball would seem that ball would be somewhere on Ford Island. There, it's docked at Ford Island, but you can't. Where'd the ball go? I guess the ball can be put underground or something. That's interesting. I gotta read a little further into it, but I don't know where the ball went. We gotta ask the Navy what happened to the ball. Someone should ask the Navy what happened to the ball. But I'm going to say, since we talked about Bill 46 being about eugenics, the last thing, and Lawrence Arroyo, is that I talked about in one of my last posts there being many Americas and many different experiences of being an American. And we're not watching ABC. We're not watching CBS. We're not watching... And by the way, CBS News has been doing some really good things lately. When I was watching when I was in Murray Stein, at that point I had been taken to Ross and Neal Psychiatric Hospital, and they back and forth, and back to jail and all this stuff. But I was watching on the TV in the psychiatric hospital a CBS News report that had come on, and it's just so all of them in there like the old TV shows. It's nauseating to be in there. It's difficult, especially when you're forced drugged. That stuff makes you feel sick, and you're watching the TV, and you're watching. But they had a really good report. I was shocked on CBS Evening News about Mars Candy and these kids in Colombia that harvest the cocoa, and they've got machetes. They're 7 years old, 6, 7 years old. They've got machetes, and they've got muscles like unbelievable. By the way, I as for that, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we should be telling our kids to develop those muscles at an early age, because they would not need to take psychiatric drugs ever if they had those muscles. And I guarantee it, most of the people that are victims of psychiatry, there is 1 out of 10 Americans on these drugs and antipsychotics. So much of it. All of them are, it's not because they're dangerous, Jason mask wearing people inside a court where they're going to break free of their, full restraining wheelchair to force drug them in and bust the cops up and, choke the judge. It's because they're on these drugs, not because they're too strong and because they're too weak. And what ends up happening is they don't develop that strength. But by the way, if you develop that strength early, you never end up identified for psychiatry or psychotherapy, which is all bullshit, because it's based on keeping you to their idea of statistical reality, which means poor and no way out of your financial reality. No way. Believe me, don't ever go to therapy. Don't go to a shrink. It's bad. It'll only hurt you in every way, because they work with the DSM, and all these diagnoses are to keep you poor. Rich family, you don't diagnose it. Statistical reality only applies to people that are slaves. Oh yeah, don't go to therapy if you want to invalidate the way you are with money, or just elevate it. Don't go to therapy. Don't take drugs. That's to slow you down so you don't impact society. But if you have your kids developing those muscles at 5, 6, 7 years old, they will never need psychiatric drugs. They will never need therapy. By the way, what I've come to realize, and this is why when I was in jail those years, I wanted a calculus text. We had no family, no friends, no way of contacting anyone on the outside, and no one likes me. No one likes me. And especially in a place like that, there's no one that's going to get you a calculus text. Why would you want a calculus textbook? You don't even know. You did symbolic logic for your, quantitative reasoning requirement because you were an English student at UH. Too deep into Wuthering Heights, as I say, right? And what, we all, if you took some elementary literature classes, you probably read that in high school. You know what I'm talking about. The first chapter of that book, Nellie Lockwood essentially becomes poor and has to go live in a rental community, But yeah, long story short. So I'm not saying that having that strength and having to do physical at an early age is bad, but they're not going to school. There's a big problem with it, and Mars said they were going to make sure those kids were going to school, and they give them, but these are the people harvesting the cocoa, and it was an incredible report. So I got to give it to CBS News for that, and they're doing some good work. But no one's watching that anymore. No one watches CBS, and no one watches the nightly news. No one has one they prefer. Well, tonight I'm not liking David Manure, ABC. I like what Hans Zimmer did. What I don't like about Hans Zimmer is that his arrangements sound too synthesized. In fact, they should have a legitimate orchestra. It just sounded too synthesized. Hans Zimmer does great compositions, but it sounds too synthesized. I guarantee they use something like Vienna Symphonic Ensemble. But when I'm composing the scores for my, Hawaii E.5 with Mathew Ursua on Olelo, we have custom music, and AI is going to help do it. It's going to be Joel Beckerman, but we're going to have the Hawaii Symphonic Orchestra. What is it? It used to be called the Honolulu Symphony, and now it's called, something else. But we're gonna partner with them, and they're gonna record, sometimes as much as once or twice a week, the custom, theme for, and it's gonna be recorded that way too, where computer can mix it, but the theme's going to be changed up. And if we could license things like Kanye West, we could license things like the Beatles, we could, if we could really develop these partnerships and get with these people, because it's an incredible thing. And to have da 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 bum bum ba ba da bum da 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 bum ba da, and shows, and we're gonna, but this is not that one, but for the big show, for the big show, we have to have red 8K ultra high definition cinema cameras out there all day. So we take, stringer, freelancer, another level, first responder, burst at hospital, everything, death, body going to the mortuary, just collect all this stuff, and 9 out of 10 of these things are going to be on the cutting room floor, but this is just for the motion graphic open. And it's unprecedented, but this is not what we're going to be doing, because that's what we have to do to get my name into News for Eternity by partnering with Sony Pictures. And this is the big show. I'm not talking about, this podcast is not about the big show. This podcast is about a littler show, Hawaii at 5 with Mathew Ursua Olelo. And now, and the My Legendary Pan, and zooming in, I've got my Donald Trump suit on, and they got this teleprompter. They hooked me up with a teleprompter, and my name is on it. Putting up sharks, putting watermarks. We've got, volunteer reporters, and people are answering my questions, and it's incredible. It's an incredible thing, and we've got a way to do it. Zoom, GoToMeeting, all the ways we can connect with people, create our own, all kinds of, help with coding, media, content management system, unlike any other. They can't say we're not real news. But since I said Bill 46 was about eugenics because it's to prevent us from having an argument this way to marry quality if we're not quality, because by having that argument, people have to infuse us with money to take advantage of patriarchy in order to marry someone like Lauren Teruya because she has good genes and we have bad genes. So, well, then why don't you just not procreate and be on welfare? Well, because I don't like welfare. I don't like the look of it. I don't like the people. I like high society. I like being well connected. I read The Economist. I like to be able to pay to have The Economist come weekly to my mailbox. And since welfare doesn't pay for that, I like the best doctors. And I like things that Medicaid wouldn't pay for, alternative therapies. And I like to do things like travel internationally and have business interests and friends all across the country and internationally. That is why. So we take advantage of patriarchy and say, well, since my genes are low quality, I've got low IQ, we have to find someone with a very, very, very high IQ, like Melania Trump. And in her case, she just wasn't educated. She apparently barely speaks a word of English. I have a theory that she speaks 5, and I think Donald Trump speaks 5 languages too. And he said bad hombres. He speaks Spanish fluently. Hebrew too. He speaks Spanish fluently with the right accent. Like Pablo Escobar kind of thing. It's just he doesn't use it because he takes advantage of the fact that he needs translators and he can play off of the little things that get lost in translation when he's communicating with the Mexican president. But when he said bad hombres, this is what a genius can do. He was using his most of America only speaks English template. And Roy Peter Clark himself, this is what was shocking about it, is, you couldn't hate Trump at that moment if you were one of these language people, because Roy Peter Clark says, use foreign words selectively in Glamour of Grammar. Right? And he did. There we go. Bad hombres. But in Melania's case, even if she's not highly educated, knows calculus and all how the body cell works like a medical doctor, Governor Josh Green, I think she does. Donald Trump knows all that too. He doesn't need Dr. Fauci. It's all just to follow the template of people without that IQ that know everything about everything. Donald Trump could be a medical doctor. He has all that knowledge, but because he's very high IQ. But in my case, because I have a low IQ, I have to find someone like that. But I'm saying that in Melania's case, even if she's not highly educated and doesn't know all that, it's not that she doesn't have good genes, it's just she's not educated. She's a makeup girl. So they tested her to make sure she had good genes. And she did. And she had a much higher quality. And so because he has a lot of money, we have to let him impregnate her with a quality baby. So if think about it. The justification for me not wanting to be around my welfare people and not wanting to be around people that live in public housing, not wanting to be around people that just focus on their own families and aren't involved in civic engagement, aren't involved in public policy and don't think about the bigger picture and don't read geopolitical monitoring. My justification for not wanting to be around my own, as they say, is that my children will come out a lot better if I impregnate someone that's very high quality genetically. So that becomes the argument, since you can't blame me and you have to protect me now because I think correctly from my own welfare people so that I'm not sucked into their crab bucket by their crab bucket mentality. You have to let me escape the crab bucket, break through the glass ceiling, run away and break into like Leifukalakalafalau, and then break back through the glass ceiling into a big show after this, a much bigger show. You have to infuse me with a lot of money and a high net worth so that I have the official argument to impregnate someone that at least was a Miss America. Or someone like Lauren Theroux. And the police would want to prevent that because they're jealous. They are crab bucket. So, if, and we're seeing Kai Trump, and we saw the Varsity Blues PSY Act, which was we're announcing that we're no longer going to do varsity blues for people. Olivia J. Giannulli, the rich families now have to kind of comply with. I don't take it serious that Olivia Jade has a degree in chemistry. We all are pretty privy to the fact she doesn't need one to have her trademark on makeup that other people make for her. It's not that complicated. But I'm sure what she wanted to do and why she wanted the Varsity Blues was so that she could have a chemistry degree and they could say she's Dr. Makeup. She has all this knowledge. She created the compounds herself, and it's incredible stuff. And she's a genius from rich family, and she's Dr. Makeup. But all the rich families had to go the direction of we're not going to overeducate relative to IQ or invalidate IQ because people can tell somehow, and so they're not going to invalidate IQ with Varsity Blues degree anymore just because their rich family pay off USC for the degree. And so the way that they show that to the public is they say they put Lori Loughlin in jail for 9 months or something like that, or however long it was, 9 weeks, for her, wanting her daughter to be Dr. Makeup. So, if they're trying to force people to live at their own level and keep people trapped at their own level, as in miserable, and make them take psychiatric drugs and normalize psychiatry in order so that people like me can tolerate our own welfare people and our own level so we don't make the argument for Varsity Blues and Stolen Valor, which is evil, to make that argument against that, to keep us trapped at our level. It looks to me like that's a lot of what we're seeing. I think content analysis is going to reveal that. If we can access the content to analyze, like with all of the hidden newscasts from Hawaii that are in Chicago that are not even digitized in a repository. They're on hard drives. You have to manually pull it. I don't believe it. Since Bill 46 is about eugenics, do you all know who Kai Trump is? This is the way we're going to have to start thinking. And this goes to the problem with the corporate email filters that I was talking about. That if someone like me is just talking about things so above the level of the journalist they shouldn't know, but it's truth, and they should know the truth, that they would just my emails to reporters, we say, oh, here's the email address of the reporter, here's the phone number of the reporter, and they can use telephony gateway to just leave a message, and the reporter never answers, and the reporter never gets the message. It's automatically deleted. And this is not even mailer demon. This is not even put in their spam folder so they can look at it later. Oh, this one's not spam. This is, it never gets to the reporter. And it's never sent back to me as mailer demon. It never says an error sending it to the reporter. It just disappears. And you think you sent the reporter an email. You think they got it. And they never got it. I talked about there being many Americas. We no longer look to the North Star. We don't want Uncle Walter anymore. Maybe we should. And I don't think, I get it. I don't think we should have Uncle Walter. We don't want Uncle Walter for 30 minutes a day to tell us that's the way it is. But we're scrolling through Facebook still. Facebook's a hell. It's a world of hell in so many ways. You know what it is. Twitter, X, as we call it now. It became X when I was in jail those years. It was just to see this, and they watch it on TV, and you see on ESPN in the jail, and everybody's watching, NFL on Sunday. I'm looking at the thing. I wish I could. But they understand the game. I need someone to explain to me what the hell is going on. I'm going to talk about, by the way, my thought that I would see Robert Kekal through the window at One Archer Lane early in the morning and late at night sometimes, hard at work writing his copy. And I would imagine, if I ever met Robert Kekawa, he would have a way to explain every single sport ever to me in just 5 minutes. And it would start with this specific kind of sentence that every single thing he said within that 5-minute time frame would come back to. Like with football, he could explain every little thing about it in just 5 minutes. How plays are drawn up, called, made, the playbooks, what all the positions in football, all the different things that can be done, the moving of the chains, the downs, why it is, and you would just never forget it. You can explain it in just 5 minutes. That's what I really wish I could read some kind of a book on this to understand American football, because everybody watches NFL on Sunday in jail. Sometimes there's no books in there. But you see in the ESPN, I wish someone would have sent me a calculus textbook, The Economist. That's why I have this. I'm trying to make these connections now, because if you set yourself up, like Donald Trump said, protect the downside so the upside will take care of itself. We never ever want to be in that position again. The rich get richer, the poor get prison, so don't be poor. And that's what this is for. But protecting the downside means making sure you have connections with people that if you were in a mental ward or if you were in jail again, they would send a calculus textbook. They would send The Economist every week. They would send, right? You have to make people like you. And then by creating that situation, you'll never end up in jail again, because you've got the materials you need, you're learning all this stuff. I said, well, why would you want to read a calculus textbook if you don't even know pre-calculus? Well, you can glean a lot of stuff from it. And this is stuff that you can teach physics. You can teach physics independent of any of the mathematics or quantitative reasoning. They're principles. Like Taylor's theorem, Riemann sums. You used to read it over and over and over again, and you reverse engineer your way back to being able to solve these functions by hand, right? And that's what you need calculus textbook for. And if you have 3 years and nothing else, I'd like The Economist, I'd like all this stuff. Newspapers every day, that's the most important thing. You should be on top of things. But if I just had even this calculus textbook, you would come out being able to engineer shit. And now I came out not able to engineer shit. What a waste of those years. What a waste of those years. So be rich is the moral of the story. And that's what this is for, to be rich. But again, back to Lauren Teruya, back to Bill 46 is about eugenics, back to what if we're all being presented different pictures of reality? From Wikipedia, from Facebook, from ABC News, from Google News. Everything we see on our phones, it goes by, everything's ID me. Everything's clear me, clear.me, ID me. No, I don't think it should be that way. I shouldn't have to present my ID. I shouldn't have to put my fingerprint on. I shouldn't have to get my eyes scanned, my irises scanned. All of that is, and eventually, by the way, that invalidates money. We can just put your currency is your IQ score. Your currency is how beautiful your face is. You, by the way, just like IQ, your beauty, either just your facial or your entire body, your babe that tops the 10 scale, like I say, that can be put on, something like a bell curve. We can give you a body quality, makes me want to jack off to you in a porn magazine, naked and or clothed, and your face is so incredible. Quotient. Score. So again, I gotta here. My nasal spray. This again, like I said, I gotta put on a lot of muscle kind of to hide the fact that I'm such a sickly allergic person. And you're in jail 3 years, and I'm in this solitary cell. It's called 23-hour lockdown. It's Grey Bar Motel. A lot of people, especially if you're in journalism, you should know this stuff. You should know how the jails are set up. So there's some things you can't explain about it, but you should know. What else can you do except? And they taught me to do these Pelican Bay burpees. And I was taught first in bad form to do it. And I was asking for instructions from the medical staff on how to do push-ups in good form. They never gave it to me. So, some months before I was finally sent to the mental ward, after many, over a year had gone by, and I got a hernia in there. And it's not so bad. I can still do stuff. Core exercises and all that. It's gonna have to be surgically repaired at some point, just for the discomfort from time to time. But now being able to go on the internet and look up what stretches to do, they never told me. They never told me what stretches to do. But the guy the hardened criminal guy that taught me in the yard how to do this thing. Second, he told me there was this other thing you're supposed to have done, and by then it was too late. I'd ripped open my groin inguinal hernia on the left above my penis, and it's just some, pain from time to time. But if you do the stretches, it's all right. And he told me you're supposed to bend down and touch your toes, and actually it gets the heart moving a little more, because what this is about is cardio. But you drop down. These are the Pelican Bay burpees, and you're 23-hour lockdown. You've got yourself that you have to drop down, do 2 push-ups, quickly jump back up like in a jumping jack position, clap your hands above your head. Then what you're supposed to add in is not go straight back to, and then just jump into the push-up position, catch your body on your palms, do the 2 push-ups, and then push yourself back up. You're supposed to actually bend down and touch your toes, and that's supposed to help like kind of a stretch in addition to increasing the heart rate. That would help. But they never told me to do that, but it was helping. It was keeping my weight under control even in there. Morbid obesity is a lifelong thing, and you've got these fat cells, and you have to continue to be very, very vigilant. And so I was able to, for the longest time, until I ripped my groin, and finally I got used to it. But it's such a unusual thing that you don't know, especially in the first couple of months of it, if you're going to be ripping it more. But it turns out to be all right. What was happening was I was doing push-ups in very bad form, and I don't blame. What I blame it on is they never gave me the papers I asked for. I told the medical staff as soon as I got in there that we need a book on Kalinetics or whatever it's called, how to do these stretches and how to do what the proper form is for push-up, because I don't know. And I never had friends. I never had people who want to teach me this stuff because I was psychiatrically medicated. Never had anyone who wanted to involve themselves in helping me to be very fit, with the exception of, but you forget these things. And her thing was use and exercise. Well, I was trained. And I don't know much about his situation now, but this is a doctor that I now very much disagree with, and he was featured on KITV for. It was just coincidental, and this is why I wrote once I was a reporter under these medications, and it made it so I couldn't even write the book right. I have to write about this. I was supposed to write about this. I don't know how it slipped. But Dr. Roth, David E. Roth, and he was a big deal in Hawaii, operated in Hawaii. He did social rhythm therapy, and KITV took this guy seriously, brought the cameras in, trumped this up for him. But coincidentally, at the same time that he was on the rise, I was also on the rise, and my pictures were being... KITV had something called U Local. And it was about the time I started the Flickr page, and I was the ambulance chaser, and then I trademarked disaster images. But this was about that time, and at the same time, KITV was taking him seriously, and they had brought his wife, Sofia Zakovic-Roth, in to... And this was the Dan Meisenzahl era. This was Mahealani Richardson, I think. I gotta confirm it. But they brought Sofia Zakovic, and her thing was, as the people from that era of KITV would remember, when she'd come in the morning to do the exercises with the morning news people, on TV, her thing was exercise ball. But like Malika Dudley from KITV, I was trained by Sofia Zakovic-Roth. Everything she taught was incredible and was so helpful. And that's how we learned the secret of Donald Trump. You look at Donald Trump, he walks like a beauty pageant. This is a person that walks like Miss America. Look at Donald Trump. And he is never off balance. He's never hyperextending his legs. You know, when he's got his hand on something like a podium, he's not resting against the podium. He's fully propped up by his own legs. This guy, he's just lightly touching something and his legs are holding him up. And that's a little secret of poise. It's a little secret of it. There's a certain way you walk. And it's just like Miss America. And we saw that with Jeb Bush, confused, had to help, you know, and or whoever it was. But every time Donald Trump would walk out to the ABC, you know, during the first 2016, it was... you would see him. He walked like one of his Miss Universe. It was incredible to see that. But, you know, but everything she thought was correct. And that was his wife, and the only thing that was wrong was the medications. And you can't help but think that and maybe Dr. Roth didn't know. There were some really interesting things I saw with this guy. But maybe he didn't know, and you have to say that whether he knows or not, that whatever he's the victim of, you know, that bad doctors will fall for the salesmanship of drug companies. They will not look at the receptor binding and blocking model, which is all salesmanship, and say, well, there's another way to look at it, which is this is the horse trink. All watered down, a little differently, proprietarily, so every drug company can make money off of it in 1 or 2 or 3 more, whichever how many, you know, antipsychotics they have, ways. It's the same shit, watered down a little differently. And in fact, what Abilify seems to do, this was his miracle drug, is so original, is actually, it does what Haldol does, but it numbs you to how it slows you down. And so you have no clue. And what it's doing is it's slowing your respiration. It's making it impossible for you to exercise. It's making it impossible for you to clean things around you, to focus on your hygiene, to do anything. It's making everything impossible. It's slowing you down. The pills are slowing you down. It's stopping you from overcompensating. And some people need to be overcompensating all the time. These pills are slowing you down. And Abilify numbs you to that, so you don't even know it. And it makes you hook up with certain people and not hook up with the people you're sexually attracted to, the objects of your true desire, whether it's money, female bodies, positions and titles, real estate deals, cars, college degrees. It makes you not hook up with what you want. Beautiful women, high-profile women, international, whatever it is. That's how the pills work. I can't say he knew, but bad doctors that fall for clinical research that's inside of the WebMD follow protocols. Well, these are the protocols, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't sue them, so we're told. someone should look into it. I mean, it's a real culprit. It's the drug companies, because they create this culture. They create this culture, and so much time has gone by. But the drug companies create this culture, and they're still doing it. Otsuka's still doing it with Rexulti. Another atypical antipsychotic, just numbs you to how it's slowing you down. So they can selectively disable you with therapy, selectively disable you with brainwashing to make sure you connect with disabled people. So you're not impregnating eugenically bred women. So they're going to teach you how to walk good. We're going to have Sofia Zakovic teach you how to walk good, how to walk like Miss America, how to, what to look for, and use the exercise ball. But we're going to slow you down so that you do it with your own welfare people. And you don't use this to break into money, break into marriage into rich family, break into leaving Hawaii, break into his thing. And he had this idea called Makaha Kids. Now, it could have been a complete psyop of some kind to see if one of his patients looked into it, or it could have just been I was such a threat to society. They had to see if I would Google him and find Makaha Kids. This could have been very much about me. I make a lot of arguments. I made a lot of arguments since I was in elementary school. But okay, take that off the table. Oh, it's insane. Fine. That's okay. It's not about me, but it's about him. He had this thing called Makaha Kids, and if you look into it, there's a truth to it. But a lot of these people in Makaha are eugenically bred people, and he I don't know how sound exactly that was, but I mean he had this thing, and we have to talk to him. I have to be fair to him, and I have to see all of that. But he had this thing called the Makaha Kids syndrome or something like that, and it had to do with the unique genetic abnormalities. I don't think he used the term inbreeding, but stemming from something like, and but we have to see all of that. And one way or another, the real culprit is the drug companies, because they have so much money. They drive culture. And when you have all that money, you can drive culture. And you can't say that the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives is not funded by Ensign Peak Advisors to promote the Mormon Church. You ask Perplexity or Google AI, does Ensign Peak Advisors fund, or did they pay out whatever production companies are involved in the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives to produce that show and put it up? Well, I mean, they can mind control people to come up with the idea themselves and pay them out in roundabout ways to parcel it out to many individuals to create the perfect crucible and bastion of inception for that show to be put up, as well as many other things that promote Mormons, that promote that religion. So yes, even though there's no direct links that we can look at and say Ensign Peak Advisors funded these production companies, oh, believe me, they did. When someone has $100 billion plus, when a church has $100+ billion, it helps them. That's the power you have over culture. Look at the influence of Donald Trump. And these drug companies have it. The drug companies have that normalization of the disease, normalization of the treatment, normalization of the side effects for the treatment. Some people are going to be fat. They were coming out with all these videos when they were drugging everybody up. Bodies come in many different shapes and sizes. No, they don't. Fat is fat, and it's not good for you, is the truth. So we're going to teach them how to walk like Donald Trump so we can have a Melania. But his Melania has to be special ed. But if we take advantage of patriarchy and human repro, then I can escape that, which means that his model fundamentally is based on she better take birth control. Because IQ is very heritable. But if I want someone that's legitimately very high IQ, because that's what I'm attracted to, that's the speed, the agility, the swiftness, the cunning, the absolute business prowess Melania that I'm attracted to. And that's what I want. And to authentically have that. In lieu of medication, because the sex is the medication. We have to put patriarchy in it so that I can be infused with a lot of money to justify the fact I, as someone with my own severe mediocrity, has to. Because patriarchy is what is America. There's nothing we can do about it. That's how, multi-generational wealth is passed down patrilineally. And so now we have to get me, the genius I dream of, at all costs. And I can enjoy her sexually. Because I've got money, I have to produce children to put the money to, and, so that they can more enjoy their lives. They at least come out somewhat above average. So if they can't get into Harvard, at least they can go to Stanford. And if they can't go to Stanford, at least they can go to some college like UH or SDSU, and they can go to Punahou, and they can go to Yolani, and they don't end up having to be slaves like everybody else. I would never want that for my children. I mean, I think I should be able to give my children $500 million like Donald Trump gave Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. That's what I want to do for my kids. And, but I care about my children enough to make sure they come out genetically superior. But they still have to be my children. Sometimes for spiritual reasons. Especially if you're an Ursua. But that's another matter. But back to Bill 46, eugenics, Lauren Taruya, the argument. Kai Trump and many Americas, people no longer looking to the North Star of mass communications, and people having a fractured North Star, as I talked about many years back before I got into jail for those years in my video about Punch the Window, Punch It Again, about Tupac Shakur, welfare mythology, Machiavelli, is the fractured North Star of us getting a la carte from different media organizations and press outlets. Although Mark Zuckerberg gets to say, this is fake news, this is real news. And he shouldn't, because, that's right there. That's why they had, that's it. That's why they had to convert him to money. Like they have to convert Sam Altman to money. They have to convert Claude to money. I think these are way overblown. Facebook was way overblown. It's just a website that has code. AI is overblown. It's just conditional logic at the end of the day that can run on a lot of computing power we now have through cloud computing. It's just, it's conditional logic. Don't overcomplicate it. And so there's OpenAI and there's all this other stuff. And they have to convert it to money. They have to value it, and then it has to be, we're going to go public offer or whatever, like Facebook had to. Because if they're not converted to money, they're too subversive. They're too dangerous. This technology enables us to wrestle away the wealth from the wealthy for ourselves, so we can all be more Donald Trump in our own way and have lots of money and travel and have penis planes like him. If not 757s, at least, Cessna Citation X, or I would want the Latitude. If I had to go to that class of private plane, I would want the Latitude, because I'm a tall guy compared to someone that's 5'8", for a male, but I'm not that tall of a male. I compared to Donald Trump, and it's a sad thing. I think I should be able to put on height, but the height I am, let's say 6 feet. That if I'm 6 feet tall, so I'm 6 feet tall, and that means that we're gonna have. I need to be able to, like Donald Trump on the 757, walk to the front of the airplane, and talk to the captain and the first officer and say, "Make it a great flight," and smile and have my thumbs up like Donald Trump in his suit. And you can't stand up on the Cessna Citation X if you're my height. You have to crouch down. I want to be able to, on the 757, fully stand up and have the experience of doing that to the flight crew in my suit on my private plane. So here we go. The key concept here. Call Lauren Taruya. Ring, ring. Lauren Taruya, it's Mathew Ursua. How was GDM? Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, da, 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 da. Do you know who Kai Trump is? And Lauren Taruya says, no. Is that a Trump? Yeah, that's Donald J. Trump Jr.'s daughter. And she says, no. Like, huh? And Donald J. Trump Jr.'s daughter. That's his daughter. I mean, wait a minute. So he has kids, right? Are you telling me he doesn't have kids? And Lauren Taruya says, no, Donald Trump Jr. has a son. And and she's got all the Hawaii News Now Great Communications servers in front of her, where it shows Charlie Kirk's death certificate, because of course reporters reporting on that should confirm everything. And it shows Charlie Kirk's death certificate. It shows, okay, well, we have to trust the reporter, so I'm sure someone has FOIA'd the death certificate or requested it from public records and sees it from the mortician. And so even though they don't show that, and they should, someone should show that. I've never seen it on Reddit. I've never seen it on any, and they put up the court document where all the court documents, all the motions of the public defender, this guy filing for don't show the face of the person. They want to bring the cameras into the courtroom. There should always be cameras in the courtroom. They want the person dressed in civilian clothing. That makes sense. But they show the many, many pages of legal motion for Tyler Robinson. But they don't show the death certificate of Charlie Kirk. And we can't blame anyone for not believing anything they see or hear from mainstream media anymore. So if they don't show the death certificate. But okay, so she's got the death certificate. I have to trust everything that they say. So she also knows. So if she says Donald J. Trump Jr. only has one child, and that's a son, not a daughter, and she's never heard of anyone named Kai Trump, then I have to believe her. So, think about this. That to keep people trapped at their own levels, because we're all presented different realities, not only is it just a fractured way of looking at the world based on our own values and our ideas and what we are attracted to, and that we're presented with news that is more likely to get our clicks in our news feeds on X and Facebook and Instagram, where there's news there. It's advertising related. So, we want to present us with news and our interests. So because these are our interests, they give us our interests, but that becomes an inlet into outlets and inlet into news stories on various outlets. It's a good thing. I like aggregating news, and Google News was good enough for me to do that. I think that's still a very good model. Keyword searches is a very good, don't forget keyword searches, it's a very good model. The world should still work that way in so many ways. Just like I talked about the camera, just because your camera can go up to 140 plus 200 something ISO, 1000 ISO, doesn't mean you should. And I think that cameras should be operated within the 2004 to 2006 limits to have the best photojournalism. Airplanes, they use the airplane example. We want to keep the flights safe. You don't say, well, let's fly in a DC-8. But with cameras, it's different, because it gets to a point where all photographers have to acknowledge, and you know this, that photography is it's removed from reality. That the piece of 4x6 photo paper that has an image on a photograph on it, a reproduction of a negative, what have you, a positive, the negative is developed and then they enlarge, and there's a reproduction of it on glossy paper, is not the way the eye sees reality in real time, which gives you, because you're framing reality in many ways on many planes. By creating that photograph, you're framing reality in space, in time, in distance, in key differences, right? Light versus dark, and exactly. So you know what I mean. And because of that, it gives you artistic license even in photojournalism. So constraints are necessary, and constraints enable the creation of art, which is beauty. We argue for the beautiful. You're not just putting a piece of doo-doo on, the paper. You're producing something that can be reprinted in newsprint, in color, that enlivens the experience of the reader, even if it's something incredibly disastrous. So here's the final thought. I'm going to get right to it. In order to keep people trapped at their levels, Donald Trump Jr. is paid a lot of money because and Trump is all Bitcoin now. I've said in Comeback of the Century that Bitcoin and all this cryptocurrency is probably bullshit. I didn't just say Trump's, and we saw some things on Trump. I said Bitcoin. Huh? And I talked about the way that it's mined. And really that this is a psychic income equivalency. So that these multi-billionaires, they're hooked up with being Bitcoin billionaires. And we see Grant Cardone talking about buying Bitcoin. We see now Robert Kiyosaki talking about buying Bitcoin. And I have a theory on it that we should still park everything we have in real estate. Everything. Because these people that are Bitcoin. Now, if you can convert that into real estate later, that's really the key thing. But the thing with Bitcoin is, I think that's to fund the other side. The renter side. I don't want to be the renter. I want to be the owner. I mean, I want to rent where I live, but I want to own all this because I want to have options. I want to be able to get out. I don't want to be tied down to 1 year lease even. I don't want to be tied down to 30-year mortgage. I got to live there, and I'm making $100K a year, and I'm paying that off to get equity. That's too low level for me. That's too little bit money. So those are my thoughts on cryptocurrency. It really may be a psychic equivalency. Think about real estate now. But on that side of things, Donald J. Trump, DJT, Donald Trump Jr., Don Jr. as they call him, that one of his things he likes to do to make money, and he may be paid by the government for this, he may be, or what, is, and also just for psychic income to be charitable, is he has to consent to be deep-faked as the father of these special ed girls that psychiatry, Kai Trump is a girl from Kaiser High School with an IEP. And no one except for me, because of the alternate reality that I'm presented, the deep-faked alternate reality that I'm presented on my cell phone and on my computer, no one except for me knows of the existence of someone named Kai Trump. And that girl is a girl with a different name if we were to look in the yearbook of Kaiser High School. That they are passing off on to, that in order to protect society from my big dreams of rich family break-in, in order to protect Lauren Taruya from my big dreams of breaking in, that way, to protect legitimately eugenic, rich people, well-bred, well-born, and or rich people, rich family protection, and perhaps so that we can have actual money and actual real estate ownership and actual net worths start to align more with genetic quality and IQ. I think there is a great degree of correlation between beauty and brains. But in any event, okay, so they want these to align now. They want money to be redistributed to the intelligent. So people can't invalidate it. So that's what Bitcoin is that's the psychic value of if I were smart, so I can still enjoy sex. That's my money, So to give that girl and I Bitcoin, so that we never know that we're disabled and shouldn't have any money, shouldn't actually own property, special deeds for people with special needs, that is not subject to. That's real ownership. That's real title. But we get special deeds for people with special needs. We can't have real title to income producing property. We can't have an apartment building. We can't have a fourplex. We can't have a 16 unit apartment building. We can't own a strip mall because they'd rather, since it says real estate is scarce, they'd rather that be owned by someone with the IQ so that they can pay for their kids to go to Stanford, pay for their kids, instead of us getting varsity blues for our kids to enjoy hooking up with people above their level. That's my theory. They're trying to now enforce that. And I want to invalidate that with money. Bitcoin isn't enough for me. But to give this girl, that's a girl with an IEP that's about to graduate from Kaiser High School, and me, and hook me up with my welfare wife, since I think this way, to hook me up with my welfare wife, my girl with an IEP, my doo-doo girl, to hook me up with my doo-doo girl, they actually have to have Donald Trump, and Donald Trump agrees to this, and his license and everything. Donald Trump Jr. agrees to this. He fully licenses his image and likeness, and he does it because it's a charitable thing to keep us trapped in our reality. But everyone else knows. oh, look what you do for these girls. And he's a legitimate someone that has, trustee position in Donald J. Trump revocable trust, which is what we're seeing. I don't think that's the actual entity structure we saw. And when I was put away and when I was in jail for those years, Donald Trump's entity structure was very, it changed because he was upgraded, or rather, he was made a Bitcoin billionaire. He was made a cryptocurrency billionaire. Donald Trump became a cryptocurrency billionaire when I was in jail. And so we saw so much restructured about his, and we're seeing now all these entities and connections to each other, and we all know the thing with the Russian nesting doll, series, but I think we're even presented a false reality of that when you ask Perplexity or when you Google what CNN says about his entity structures and his sources of funding. So they're saying that there's this one trust he has. I wasn't seeing that before. I just recently asked Perplexity. There's this one trust called the Donald Trump Revocable Trust. But and DJT can do whatever he wants, and he's involved, and it just makes it easy, estate planning wise, and everything's owned by that, supposedly. There should be systems of trust. But again, I don't know. That's what I'm seeing. That's what Perplexity is saying. If we can trust that, and I'm being presented the same reality everyone else is being presented, if we can trust that, okay, so it looks good for DJT to be doing this charitable stuff for welfare people, like the people that wear the red hat that says MAGA. That's to keep us under it. We can't be globalists. We can't all just fly on planes, even to Mexico City. We can't all just go to Paris. We can't all just go to London. We can't all... Some of us have to be... That's for people... Passports are for people that are eugenic. The world isn't for everyone, so we're anti-globalist. Like Alex Jones, that's when he sold out to Trump. Anti-globalist. Globalism, bad. Globalism, that's pedophiles. Globalism, that's... He was being fed the QAnon stuff. Globalism, they're these evil globalists. George Soros' son, being fed the QAnon stuff. Pizzagate, Podesta emails, all of that stuff. That's to make sure you don't know statistical. That's to make sure you don't know. And he thought that Jeffrey Epstein, all the stuff that Alex Jones was being fed, that he thought that Jeffrey Epstein flew on an airplane to his pedophile island. As it turns out, you have to take a boat there, and it's not that big an island. There's no runway on his island. So Alex Jones was wrong about so much. He was being fed stuff, just complete, utter insanity. And what I was about to say about QAnon is if anyone with some college education, but even for someone like me with an English degree, you recognize that as Allen Ginsberg's howl. All of that. Go to Wikipedia, look up QAnon. Everything they came up with, you look at that, that's robot apartments, Moloch, all the insanity of howling into ears that will never hear kind of stuff from Allen Ginsberg's poem, beat poem, howl. That's what all that is. And that's to keep you under it. That's to make sure you can't travel the world. That's to make sure you can't own the fourplexes, because people that get trapped in that shouldn't own the fourplexes, shouldn't own the, shopping mall, shouldn't own this is welfare. This is to make sure that welfare people are funneled into procreation if it's right for them, or otherwise, in any event, kept at their level. Something to scream about in the streets. How? Yep, exactly. Get on the megaphone. Like there's just been these kidnappings all over. Kids were kidnapped. All these kids were kidnapped that weren't reported in the news. There's just these kids missing that we don't even know about, and we don't even know the parents reported it or didn't. There's all these kidnappings. We're just, you have to fall for that. And so they can own one home and start procreating and get married to someone that didn't go to college if they fell for QAnon. But what I'm saying here is, you see what I'm saying? So I'm going to ask all of you, do you know who Kai Trump is, and do you recognize her, and does Donald Trump Jr. have a daughter named Kai Trump? Or am I just seeing a picture of a girl from Hawaii Kai Kaiser High School with an IEP that Donald Trump Jr., that's one of 1,000 or maybe as much as 100,000 girls across America that he has authorized and licensed his image and likeness to be used to pass off on me for someone else, a different girl with an IEP from his local community is a girl that appears as Kai Trump. So Kai Trump looks like maybe 1,000 different girls across the country. You see what I'm saying? And they use that to pass the girl off on me. And Donald Trump Jr. even flies in and gives the girl away as her dad. So they can hook us up with our Bitcoin and our welfare apartment. We shouldn't know, but we have to follow QAnon because you're not supposed to know. You're supposed to think that your public housing hookup, wherever it is in California, in nicer HPH properties in Hawaii, wherever it is, that your public housing hookup is, you own that. And Donald Trump Jr. is taking care of it because his daughter is rich and she wanted you. You see? Why would Donald Trump Jr. do that to people? Because they're in agreement as elites. Some people shouldn't have any money and have to be excluded for whatever reason because of what they look like or what their IQ is from the money game. Which means that they agree welfare should be a dumping grounds. Welfare should be a dumping grounds for undesirables. I don't think so. We have to eradicate welfare. What that means is something very radical. We have to force companies, free enterprise, to hire mentally retarded, undesirable people so they can be included in the money game. And we've got to tear down the welfare buildings. Or if they're nice enough, privatize them. Yeah. That's what you do with the bell curve. That's what you do with Charles Murray. Richard Herrnstein, the bell curve. That's flawed a lot of their sociology was, and they thought that they were geniuses because they knew computer. That's the truth of it. And I disagree with cognitive partition. But I definitely think, and that's why I say, that that's the ultimate divide. That cognitive partition, some people are just too low below a threshold, so you put them in public housing. And it costs society more if they don't get their $900 a month in SSI and all their EBT, Medicaid, SNAP, cash, EBT card hookups. If they don't get their 3 checks, then it costs society more. They say, well, you know what? So then free enterprise and businesses and corporations need to start footing that bill. So the government doesn't have to. We can lower taxes, tear down public housing, get rid of public housing, and force free enterprise to hire these people and make a place for them in the world to be able to pay their own way. But I want something more. That's for everybody else. I want Lauren Taruya. Or better, but that can be the second wife. Yeah, that's my starter wife. Ideal at this point. I've got in my mind. It could be someone else. You can always upgrade. The point is to use her as a stepping stone to upgrade to someone better later. Like Donald Trump goes to Marla. Mistake. Then goes to Melania. But you see the value of the conspiracy theory? Kai Trump is just a girl from Hawaii, Kai, with an IEP that in order to keep this cat, this genius feline of my brain that's attacking everything out there and winning, in the bag, in our welfare, give us Bitcoin as in welfare, we own our KPT unit. We own our KPT unit. Special needs for people with special needs. Donald Trump Jr. flies in. This is cheaper for society than us, owning fourplexes or owning an apartment building or owning a strip mall. It's cheaper for society, and because that should be for eugenic people. We don't want to marry Lauren Taruya. We don't want to break it into Lauren Taruya. High quality. So here's a girl from Hawaii, Kai, with an IEP that went to Kaiser High School that's graduating and wants a wedding day. Hook her up with Varsity Blues. That's how Varsity Blues is done. Look who has a degree from Florida State. Look who's a golfer. Oh, she can go to Honolulu City and County, all the municipal courses every day. Oh, look, your welfare wife don't ever tell him. He shouldn't know. He should never know. If you knew who that was, you'd only cry. His wife's a professional golfer, and she goes every day to, so Honolulu Country Club, a bunch of Bali, of Honolulu Country Club, they set up our wedding day at this, and Donald Trump Jr. flies in. And hey, for me, I like the president to come in on Air Force One when I marry Kai Trump. Well, if the president doesn't come in, I don't believe it. I don't believe I own my KPT unit if the president doesn't come in. I say, bring your dad, DJT. I think the president should come and see his granddaughter get married to me at Honolulu Country Club. If indeed that woman exists to the Trump family in any other way except a bit of a contractual obligation to appear for me and pass her off as his own daughter on her wedding day.